episode of Lie, Cheat, and Steal, the podcast about liars, frauds, thieves, and bullshitters. I'm your host, Pat Royce, and I just want to let you guys know that we are a bi-monthly podcast that's available on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. If you haven't already, be sure to give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and leave us a short review. And this is one of the easiest ways to help us support the show. We also release 2 more episodes every month on Patreon. So if you like what you hear, visit patreon.com/lie, cheat, and steal to sign up for 2 more scam stories every month and access to our entire back catalog. With all that out the way, I just want to give a shout out to my co-host with me, as always, Kath Barbadoro. How you doing today?
Hi, Pat. I'm all right. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay now.
You're on the road, right? You're in the middle of a tour?
On the road, middle of a tour. My voice shit the bed. And I just got to deal with, like, the seedy underbelly of the American travel industry today.
Lovely.
And,
did anyone have a meltdown on any form of transportation today?
I damn near had a meltdown on all forms of transportation today. So I got my car, like, ready to go for the trip. But the way things worked out, it was like, well, I couldn't find a feature, and my manager was like, well, I found you a feature with a car. So I ended up just like, okay, well, the upside, I don't have to put thousands of miles on my car, but the downside is a lot of little weird like catching one-way flights from city to city and shit. Mm-hmm. And today I flew from Tampa to Atlanta, and I flew on Frontier. Never flew Frontier before.
I bet the clientele on the Tampa to Atlanta flight is... I bet people are having a good time. I bet people are having fun.
Under other circumstances, it would have been fun, but like this was wild. It was like kind of like on the cusp of a mutiny, because Frontier makes you, if your carry-on or your personal item does not fit into this little slot, it becomes a carry-on.
Right.
And the carry-on... And if you're finding this out as you're putting it in the slot, that means you're already at the gate. That means it's going to cost you $99.
Oh.
100 smackaroos, yo. This has to be somebody's kink, is traveling Frontier, because it's the most degrading, least dignified. Like, it'd be like, oh, you want to get abused and fucking, you want to get abused and humiliated, you piece of shit, fly Frontier. Like, if you want to get financially dominated, guess what? $100 for your personal item.
That is I do feel like the one bag plus personal item, the fact that most airlines are strict about the bag, but the personal item is real anything goes shit. It's a real wild card. They'll let a lot of things be a personal item, but Frontier is like, absolutely not. We are putting a stop to this.
Yeah.
A personal item must be a purse. If it's not a purse, get it the fuck out of here. Pay us $100.
Frontier, they clearly, and also I had to bring my PA with me. Now I'm lucky enough to have like a really cool, really powerful little portable PA, but it still weighs a lot. It cranked my bag up to over 40 pounds. Ugh. So I don't know how much. I mean, I got reimbursed from my manager. I didn't pay for the ticket, but like I out of pocket that day, $200 for my bags today.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, that is clearly what it's like.
That's how much it costs to rent a car to drive to Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure. They clearly they made this airline to facilitate baggage fees. Yeah.
It's only a transportation company like in the secondary to collecting travel baggage fees.
Yeah, man, and like I literally, so we're all up there at this little thing trying to test our bags out, and there was this older black dude who was literally hammering down both fists onto his bag, trying to get in there. And when it finally went in, everyone cheered, and I was like, "This is bleak." But and then I got to the and then so I stay at a different hotel every night. Every hotel needs like $50 to $100 as the incidentals fee, but like they take like 5 days to get it back to you. So
right, and if you're in a different hotel, yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So I've been being hit with like the very ugly side of the American travel industry today. But happy to be here, happy to be recording. How's your day going?
My day's okay. So, my cat had some teeth pulled yesterday, and she's like in good spirits. She was so fucked up yesterday. She was like so stoned. It was so funny.
I saw those videos. She was like just kneading stuff that wasn't there.
She was kneading the air. Yeah, she was laying on her side kneading the air. It was great. But right before this podcast, I tried to give her another dose of her pain meds so that she would knead the air and not be in pain. And she was very unhappy about that. I got hissed at. I can't believe it.
Oh, no.
The disrespect. I haven't been hissed at. It's been years since she's hissed at me. So I was like, all right, you don't want your pain pills. We'll try this again later when you're actually in pain, because you will be pretty soon. So
yeah,
we'll see. Unfortunately, cats do not have brains that think like that. So
yeah,
when she gets to be in pain, she's probably going to be even meaner to me. So that'll be great.
Well, here's shouting across the cross-species divide out to Zelda and tell her to have some patience for us.
I'm trying. It's so frustrating that you can't tell them what's going on. It's really upsetting. But it was really funny when she was fucked up yesterday. So that's a small silver lining.
Yeah, we had to take Sid's little Chihuahua dog, George, in to get his teeth out a few months ago. And like it was just like, that's like me and I love both of her dogs. We've both become very close in the time that we've been dating. But her little dog George, that's my dude. And I had to watch him like walk out of the back, and he like was all disoriented. And he was putting his little paw up to his teeth and just trying to hold him, and it was hard. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. And I felt so bad for that guy.
Oh, poor George.
Yeah, but yeah, well we're sending our thoughts and prayers out to Zelda.
Thank you.
Thinking about it, yeah. So let's see. So I have a bit of a segue today.
Okay.
It's the laziest segue ever.
Here we go.
I'm like 1 or 2 states over from where the story takes place.
Oh, okay.
That's my segue.
Same region, I guess we can say.
Yeah, I'm on what I've been dubbing the Grits and Gravy tour, just because it's all throughout the South. And so I wanted to talk today about a little story breaking out of Mississippi. This is a current event story. So everybody, we as listeners know, sometimes it means we don't have all the information yet, but we have quite a bit of information. I'm talking about what is known in the news as the Brett Favre welfare scandal, but it's probably more accurately described as the Mississippi welfare scandal. Have you heard anything about this?
I haven't, I feel like I just, as a non-sports watcher, I see the name Brett Favre and I kind of tune out. Like, I'm just like, whatever comes after this probably doesn't interest me. So I just have like a brain block around it,
It's either his boring fucking stats or news that he texted another picture of his dick. I mean, either which way, I'd get out of there.
Yeah, or just like someone's being compared to him, and I'm just like, I don't know who any of these people are. Good luck. God bless everyone. Yeah. Not for me. So I've not heard anything about this.
So I think one thing we both know, I think one thing we all know about Brett Favre is he's not broke, right?
Sure.
Brett Favre is a rich guy.
If you play sports and I know your name, you're rich.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so like essentially, I'll start off with the overview. It recently came to light that Brett Favre received $5 million in funding from the state of Mississippi from their welfare department that was earmarked to help lift families out of poverty. He took that $5 million and helped finance the building of a volleyball gym at his alma mater, Mississippi Southern University, where his daughter currently goes to school and plays volleyball.
Amazing. So, he bought his daughter a volleyball court with money to bring people out of poverty. Love it.
Yeah. So we are going to take a startling and frustrating and very anger-inducing trip through the state of Mississippi and talk about what it's facing, its trials and tribulations these days, and what resources it was given to take care of that, and where those resources actually went. This is one of those episodes that will get you pissed off, for sure.
Hell yeah. I'm ready to be pissed off.
Yeah, let's get angry, because I've been having such a great time all day dealing with the wonderful... Man, I went to the wrong Howard Johnson from the airport, and then I left my iPad at that Howard Johnson, got back to the new Howard Johnson I'm supposed to be at, realized my mistake, and had to run back to the other Howard Johnson.
Oh, brother.
So you know what? But you know what? I'm over it, and it's time to get mad again.
Okay.
It's time to go back in. So here we go. And again, forgive my voice, guys. If one thing, this will force me to talk slower. So congratulations. So I want to talk about the current condition of Mississippi. And also, I have nothing against the people of Mississippi. And coming from somewhere as a guy who grew up in a state and a city and it would be a neighborhood where the stereotypes were attached to it and people like to blanket you in with all those people, I completely get that. So this is not about the great people of Mississippi.
Completely. This is like, I get a sense, I'm going to guess that this story is about how the great people of Mississippi have been fucked over. And they deserve more, and like nothing against them. Absolutely.
Yep. Just like and that's the cool. The thing is, like, everybody I've ever met from Mississippi, cool as shit. Just like fun people. Every moment I've spent in Mississippi has been fun. It's always been for comedy. So of course, it's a little bit of a skew, but I love it there. I love my time that I spent there. So this is definitely about the leadership in Mississippi. So
totally.
Let's bust out a few stats about where Mississippi stands in regards to other states in the nation. Mississippi is currently the poorest state in the union. Roughly 1 in 5 citizens live below the poverty level. It also has the highest infant mortality rate, highest teen pregnancy. It has the lowest literacy rate. Now, whether you think this is related to this or not, it is the most conservative state, specifically in its leadership. It has the highest percentage of conservative leaders. Both senators are conservative. It was Mississippi's law about abortion that helped kickstart a lot of the recent, the Roe v. Wade overturning and a lot of the trigger laws that were in place. Mm-hmm. A lot of that was based on legislation out of Mississippi or laws modeled to resemble their own.
Isn't Mississippi where they're having that water crisis too? Isn't it Jackson?
It is. We're gonna get that too. Okay. They've got problems all across the board. They've been called. Their leadership has said that they have an opportunity to lead the nation in the defense of life in America.
Great,
which would
really be tackling the main issues of Mississippi and why life is hard there. It's definitely abortion and not all this other stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And so now one thing that's being very publicized right now is that the Mississippi is facing a water crisis born straight out of systemic racism and systemic neglect. Mississippi is set to receive $75 million in federal water funding on top of $450 million that's previously set aside from a coronavirus relief bill, all to improve their water infrastructure. And the state has demanded that the cities receiving this match the federal funding, and that makes it next to impossible for the cities that actually need it.
This is so crazy too, because it's like that amount of money for the federal government is really not that much money. That's like
not at all.
That's like 2 Marvel movies. That's not a lot of money. Like
this is Ant-Man 1 and 2.
Yeah. 2 like mid-sized Marvel movies.
Yeah. Not even the big guys.
So it's so wild to be like, okay, Jackson, Mississippi, like where's your half? Like what do you mean my half? Like
my half.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about like the idea that like these Republican senators would be like, we neglected all federal funding, and the whole crowd cheers. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I will never applaud the rejecting of free money.
Right.
It's not my blood. Can't do it.
It's so weird, too, because you'd think, like, I thought the whole reason that they liked Donald Trump was because he was, like, President Deals, Yeah. So, like, why not frame it as, like, dude, we fucking snowed the federal government. We got the best deal, the sweetest deal. Like, it's just so bizarre to me. But I'm up in my East Coast ivory tower, so I'm not gonna cast aspersions on Mississippi because I know these problems are not with the people who live there. But it is frustrating to watch.
But one thing I will say, and this is and this goes for the people of Texas too, so I'm not talking shit specifically, is that it's an easy sell to the voting population of these states to be like, hey, federal government wants to come here and give you money. You know what that means? They control you.
Totally.
And it's like, and the politicians know that is a great way to spin why they decline to take this money or why they attach so many fucking weird ass stipulations to it. So as a result, Jackson, which is largely black and largely Democrat, and it's a state capital, has been left out of this funneling of funds that have been made to go to largely white and suburban population centers away from Jackson.
Right. That presumably have the tax base to be able to pay for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And as we record this episode, Jackson residents are forced to boil brown tap water that oftentimes lacks the necessary pressure to even make it out of the faucet. And citizens are being told to shower with their mouths closed. So that is where Mississippi is standing in terms of how they serve their residents. But the federal government was like, hey, you know what? we want to help you guys out. So, of course, they gave them TANF funds, so TANF, which stands for the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, more commonly known as welfare. And now these funds are available for Mississippi to distribute to its citizens. Now, as Republican governorship is wont to do, the powers that be are very selective about how and about which and how many welfare applicants get approved. So, Mississippi, as being one of the poorest and one of the most in need of this funding, also distributes the least amount of it directly to welfare recipients. There's an entire philosophical debate that could be had about where the government's role in all this lies, and is it better to give people money directly or to set up programs that can partake in?
Right.
But what we do know that's not debatable is that right now in 2022, if you had to take a guess on how many people are collecting welfare in the state of Mississippi, how many would you guess?
Ooh, I don't know, because I don't like number of people wise.
Yeah,
or like percentage of people wise?
No, just number of recipients.
Okay, well, first, I don't think this is cheating. I'm going to look up the population of Missouri.
Go right ahead. Because that will probably only stray you away from the right answer.
Okay, there are 6.2 million people in Missouri. And I'm going to guess this is like a ridiculously low number. But also, everyone in Missouri is very poor, or it tends to be very poor.
It's 1 in 5. 1 in 5 live below.
One in 5 live below the poverty line, which
it's Mississippi.
Sorry.
Oh, this is Mississippi. You were saying Missouri.
Sorry. Yeah, Mississippi. 1 in 5 people in Mississippi live below the poverty line, but let me see. Okay, hold on. Okay, never mind. Mississippi, because I looked up Missouri by accident. Mississippi has 2.93 million people in it. I'm going to say, and 1 in 5 are below the poverty line and thus should be receiving welfare. I'm going to say 500,000 people get welfare.
200.
200 people? 200,000.
200 people.
200 people.
100 people plus 100 people, 200 people.
200 individuals in the entire state are getting these TANF funds.
Directly distributed to them. Yeah,
okay, as cash. Yeah.
Yeah, which is insane.
That's bananas.
Yeah, it's bananas. And it's just, and if you go back, you can look at their numbers. They denied 99% of all welfare applications.
Jesus Christ.
And
I'm sure the application is a huge pain in the ass. I'm sure it is a massive undertaking and very complicated, and there's still no chance.
Because their welfare system is so underfunded, sometimes the office that you need to go to get these welfare applications, depending on where you are or where you have access to it transportation-wise, may not be open that week. May only be open a few days a week. May not be open on your day off.
Yeah.
Or it's only open on days you got to work. That is not uncommon because they're not giving enough funding to even stay open. To go back and touch a little bit on America's history with welfare, we had the episode about the welfare queen, Reagan's welfare queen.
Yep.
And welfare used to have a whole different connotation in America. America was relatively charitable, or at least government charity was popular up into you look at the Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl, we raised so much money for these people. So many federal funds were given to these poor families.
Right.
Because the idea of living in poverty was poverty meant you lived in the country and you were white. And somewhere along the lines, the powers that be decided that, I don't know, the new face of poverty is going to be inner city and black.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that to highlight the issues. They did that because they knew that would dry funding up real quick.
The idea is but giving to people in the Dust Bowl is to help these people who have been are struggling and they need it and everything. But the whole thing with the welfare queen is black urban poverty is people scamming this, people getting this stuff unduly, and the reason that they're in poverty is because they don't want to work and they want to live off the government, which is just absurdly racist and
because there's this idea or this belief that I hear among right wingers, people who are against large government, and they say that government spending will be abused by people because it's human nature to abuse and exploit and manipulate systems. So it's best if left to the free market, which last time I checked, the free market was regulated by people. So why are they not just as why are they not just as likely to abuse or fuck with this? Like it doesn't make it's like it's basically saying it's like no. The free market is people who have businesses, respectable people who aren't poor. They're not going to abuse the system.
We need to let the smart people who are evidence that they're intelligent because they're rich. They get to manipulate the system. That's who deserves to manipulate it.
Yeah, so in step with like traditional Republican beliefs that, and again, I also don't want to. I've gotten a few like complaints lately on like on some of my social medias like about being one-sided or whatever, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, I am. I guess I am because
we like, kind of just are like that is sort of our perspective.
Yeah, and, I hate the Democrats just like for very valid reasons as much as I hate the Republicans, but I'll just say it like the Republicans would be up to some shit that's just insidious and evil sometimes. Like straight up like I don't know, like this is one of those things.
Yeah, I mean if you're like a right-wing listener, thank you so much for listening. Try to just focus on how much we hate the Democrats. Like let's find some common ground around that, and don't worry about the other stuff. You can still listen. We definitely think that what you believe is wrong and harmful, but you know, that's fine. You can if you can tolerate it, thank you.
I just like I mean there's a million things. Obviously politics is sucks in general, but I've noticed that the shitty things that I see done by the like Republicans and conservatives tend to be born from this like this insidious worldview they've been building for 3 generations.
Yeah.
You know, like not just this like you know, Democrats obviously like they're ineffective, they don't do shit, they have like they're racist in different ways. I get all the criticisms, but they're not built upon the backs of like a religious based like perversion of Christianity that's been being fermented for 3 decades and is now starting to take shape and take hold of the government. Like
totally.
I don't think they're doing that. So here we go. So what Mississippi decided was that their welfare funds would be best doled out by the private sector.
Classic.
Of course,
classic fans of helping the poor, the private sector.
Private sector, yeah.
Really historically have only done good for disadvantaged people.
Yeah, so they what private sector means in terms of dispersing government funds is nonprofits. It's nonprofits that step in the way and they take these government funds and they say, "Don't worry, we'll make sure this goes to help the people." Mm-hmm. Now, almost exclusively, this does not mean we're giving out checks to people who need it. It means we're funding programs, we're funding, charter schools. We're funding like organizations and communities that we think will help. And
we're funding programs, but more importantly, we're also funding administrators' salaries to run these programs and researchers to research these programs. And if the researchers and the administrators find out that this program is not actually wanted or effective, too bad, they still get paid to run it. So they're going to keep doing it because that's their salary.
Because and also they have zero when it comes to state oversight as terms of what happens with federal money is almost like unchallenged. Nobody tells them where their federal money goes. It's completely up to them. And when they say the private sector, the people who own these nonprofits, they're not like, they're not competing. The way that they say private sector, it encourages competition, which encourages, better value. We all get a better deal. People are competing. There's no competition in who gets these fucking contracts. It's people who know the governor. It's people who are friends with the local government.
Yeah,
that's whose nonprofit gets it. It's not like they go and find the best nonprofit. Like,
right.
That's not what they're doing. So.
It's basically the same thing that like we do with war. Like it's exactly the same as like military subcontractors. It's just the government has all of this money. They will give it to you if you're friends with them and submit the right paperwork. And the outcome or like the principles of your company or whatever like don't matter to them in the slightest. This is all a very well-oiled machine to give money to, people they know.
Yep. So one thing I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. We're talking about local, state level, city level politics. I did a show in Beaumont, Texas on Sunday. and I did it at a winery. And sometimes you don't know, like, oh, winery in Beaumont, is it going to be like a very
the beautiful
crowd?
vineyards of Beaumont, Texas.
Yeah. So we did a place, a show at this place, and I will say, they had dope pizza, and their wine was like legit good. A lot of times, like, I go to these wineries, and I'm just like, oh, it's whatever, it's wine. Their shit was good. Also, I get there, and I think I found I found a business there. They had a lot of, they seemed a little more left of center than anybody I would have in Beaumont. It doesn't become good, but it means that, like, I got there, and there was these gay dudes worked there, and all of their homies came to the show. Mm-hmm. So it was like a lot of times you're worried, like, oh, is this crowd gonna be stuffy? Like, no, it's a very party, fun, freewheeling crowd. We had a great time. It was packed out. But when it started off, I was explaining why my voice was gone. And so I was going to make a joke. And so I said, yeah, you know how I lost my voice is actually, what's a city you guys don't like? Mm-hmm. And this dude in the crowd goes, Vidor. And I don't know if you know anything about Vidor, Texas.
Oh, yes, I do. Yeah. Extremely racist. For listeners, if you don't know, look up what a sundown town is. That is what Vidor is.
Vidor is the prime example of a sundown town. It's the most notorious one.
Yeah.
So I yelled out, I said, hey, well, you guys know why I lost my voice, because I was too busy screaming, fuck Vidor. And that gets a big laugh, except this lady at the end raises her hand. And I said, yes, ma'am.
I love when someone raises their hand at a comedy show. Always good.
You know you're in for it, yeah. So she raises her hand. I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, I would just like to point out that I am the mayor pro tem of Vidor.
Were you like, I'm so sorry that's your job?
I cut. I was like, oh, well, hey, sorry, thanks for being a good sport. And she proceeded to not laugh the entire night and just sit there and type on her phone.
She's got to know what Vidor's like. What does she think? That's wild.
And so at one point, I have a tag where I talk about not telling the truth and how someone's being dishonest. And I was like, dishonesty, best policy, politician table over there, keep up the good work. And she gave me the most, like, bless your heart Southern woman smile. And they walked out, said nothing to nobody, and just left.
Bless
and
them.
I still don't know if, I hope she didn't try, like, go on Yelp and martyr herself at the expense of this venue, which I think she might have done. But we'll find out later if our company gets a complaint. Like if my booker gets a fucking email. But so anyways, yeah. So that was my little brush with local government here. So yeah, we talk about these nonprofits. These nonprofits are who gets to say so and what goes where when it comes to the TANF funds, the state welfare money for Mississippi, which, as we've covered, is needed by 1 in 5 people need that shit. So they turn to a woman named Nancy New. Nancy New, which is just like, that's a scam heavy name. I love that. So Nancy New is the head of a nonprofit called Families First for Mississippi. And
okay, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say Nancy New first, families second is probably the way that this nonprofit works.
Oh, you would be correct, Kath. This woman is already, as of this, I'll get into it, but she has already pleaded guilty to all the shit we're going to talk about. Yeah. So Nancy New was the former educator turned head of Families First for Mississippi, one of a handful of agencies tasked with doling out welfare dollars for Mississippi residents. Now, it became clear that Families First acted merely as a spigot that allowed the leaders of the Mississippi Republican Party to redirect welfare dollars to numerous pet projects and gifts. So she started working closely with the then Mississippi governor, Phil Bryant, and John Davis, the head of the Mississippi Welfare Department. And they started essentially just putting money towards projects that would either help them politically or personal projects. I mean, if you get into just the gifts, she bought the governor's wife clothing, which is like, probably not ethical.
Yeah.
Some funds disappeared that ended up buying John Davis a brand new Tahoe.
Imagine that. Yeah. That's like, it's just so wild that people like, I don't know. I guess I just like have, it's so hard for me to think of the scale of this where it's like, you're buying yourself a new car with this money. Like a new car, that is a major purchase. Tends to be something that a very poor family could really use, a car. Not anything as nice as a Tahoe, but like...
I bet you could get 3 cars for the price that you paid for that Tahoe that would change the lives of some of their residents.
Completely. Like, it's in a place like Mississippi, like, you have to have a car that runs in order to, like, have a job,
Yep.
So... Yeah, it's just like, it just seems like so much money to be stealing. I know in the grand scheme of like the scams we talk about, it's not that much, but it's like, you're ripping off fucking poor people to buy yourself a car? Like, no hell hot enough for these people. It's insane.
And this is like, these are the kind of people who like to them, like, it'd be like you ever heard like a relative or a friend's mom who just has a lot of opinions about what welfare recipients should be buying with their welfare or their food stamps, you know, like that kind of deal. It's one of these things where like I'm sure they like, you know, we talk about non-believers or true believers and people who are just bullshit artists.
Yeah,
like I really do think that these people thought the best thing for the people of Mississippi was for them to be in power of what happened or in charge of their money, because they have this idea. It's not like, and I mean, I say I'm over here saying what their ideas are, but it's clearly cut out in what they propose, the legislation that they put through is like, it's to them. It's not like, okay, people need money. Well, let's start by giving them money, right? First of all, let's just give them money that they need to pay their bills to get through that, and then let's talk about fixing the infrastructure for public transportation to get people to and from work. Things like that have proven impacts on alleviating poverty. They're not interested in. They're interested in stuff where they were setting up like financial planning seminars at low-income housing projects.
Right, like the implication being that like the reason that these people are poor is because they're irresponsible.
Yeah.
And and financially illiterate or whatever. Yeah,
and then they would come out, and there's like emails that show like how nobody came out to this fucking event that they held at this housing project, and then so to remedy that they were like, well, why don't we do hot dogs next time? And then so people came out for the hot dogs, but they were like we're not getting the level of engagement, and somebody was like, you know what? Sadly, I think this is just a common trait of the socioeconomic class that
is
lives
so
here.
Fucking infuriating.
Yeah.
And like the thing is like, no one is better with money than poor people. Like no one is better with money. No one can stretch a dollar further and can like figure out how to like get stuff for cheap and stuff. Like it's just, it's so absurd to be like, I guess these people just don't want to learn. Like,
it goes back to like that whole thing of like, I don't know, like I know people who are broke as shit who could benefit who I know growing up were like, you know, dirt fucking poor, or the family didn't have a lot, and now they've like stabilized themselves, and you would think they would have this throw the rope back mentality, or at least like an empathy towards what people are going through. And it's not. It's like, I would say, unfortunately, I don't know what it is, it's very common for people who pull themselves out of these situations to be like, okay, now I did it, now everybody else has to do that. And like, it's very easy to sell these people on the idea that like, hey, to make it easier for everybody else is unfair to you. We watch it happen right now with the student debt loan forgiveness.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I feel like people are just like, it's this psychological reaction formation thing where it's like, they want to be proud of themselves, and they should be, because like it is really hard to pull yourself out of poverty, but they get like obsessed with like, you know, their neighbor who they think is, you know, or even if they are like, why do you care if your neighbor's like selling their food stamps or whatever? Like such a small scale like level of exploitation going on, given the level of exploitation that is happening to those people, you know. It's so strange to me.
I think it's because of like, it really there's very clear differences in status between a lower middle class person and an upper class person, or like somebody who's living in poverty. There's very clear distinctions, like the car you drive, where you live. When you get into like these neighborhoods and into these communities, there's not as big a distinction as some of them would like there to be.
Yeah,
you know, like they're like, you know, I think there's that subconscious gnawing of like, oh shit, everybody from the other side of the tracks, they don't care that, you know, I actually live in this block, which is a little better than this block, and I actually I go to community college, and there's like very few distinctions that I feel they think are visible.
Right, and it is like, you have to work so hard for so little in this country that like, I can see why people get like hung up on this thing of like, well, this person's just like given the same amount of money that I earn, and so like, how dare they, or whatever. Like,
and the people that powers that be aren't doing anything to dissuade that thought.
No.
That's
like, so encouraged. Yeah, thinking like that.
Well, I mean, just today I saw that guy literally like using both of his fists to hammer down on his backpack to get it into that slot to avoid. It was like the sword and the stone for poor people, and we were all just like, everybody was in the fucking airline thing. Everybody cheered when it got in, and I was just like, God damn, this is bleak. Even like the lady who works for Frontier was like clapping like she was like an assistant at a magic show or some shit. Like, it was the most heartbreaking.
Yeah, you are. So, I feel like you're really taking this story personally today because you have just witnessed like the level of indignity that like trying to save money will get you in this country.
Yeah, man. Dude, it's crazy because like I usually like when I fly, like, you know, I mean, I don't. I'm not over here flying like I usually go with whatever the cheapest flight is, but there's companies I'll stay away from. But like my manager just had to get my ass from Tampa to Atlanta,
right?
You know what I'm saying? And it needed to happen fast. So like I was just there and like. They made up the entire ticket price. All the shit that we say the ticket price, we made up for in bag and check fees.
Yep.
Off top. Also, just like like we were over there sitting, and they will tell you to stay seated, but not like please remain seated until your zone is called. It's like they're talking to third graders. They're like everyone in their seat. Don't get it. At one point, they paged a lady. They were like, "Raise your hand. This is your name." The lady got up and over the intercom, he's like, "Don't get up. Don't get up. Don't get up. Stay seated. I'll walk to you." And I was like, "Holy shit!"
Basically,
man.
like the flight attendants are treating you like TSA treats everyone.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Normally, you get through security and you stop being yelled at by TSA. No, they kept it. Yeah, you were like at the DMV of the airport.
Yeah. And it's just like when I go like I stay at good hotels, I stay at bad hotels. You know, I mean I ain't paying for them, so I have very little say. So, but like sometimes I'll stay at places, and the worse of a hotel it is, the more adversarial they are for you the minute you show up. And it's like that. It's just like this class distinction thing. They're just like, oh, because you know, you're not much above me. You work at the fucking Howard Johnson, lady.
Well, that's the other thing too. Is like the reason that they're so fucking cranky is because they're also not getting paid enough.
Yeah.
Like, and people are mad and mean to them. Like, it's just this horrible, vicious cycle of totally good people who are put in these positions by, you know, whoever is making millions off of Frontier Airlines, who would never take their own airline, you know?
Yeah, the dog shit. It's like if you want to avoid this, like meanwhile I look over like across the terminal, the Delta passengers have like hot towels and shit. Like the Frontier passengers, yeah, they're just like, stay in your fucking seat, pig. You know?
Yeah.
It was insane. I mean, the class distinction is always very, very obvious at the airport. But like, yeah, boy, get that Frontier ticket and see if it doesn't look so much more stark in comparison. So, moving on to the star of today's show, really, kind of the big name attached to all of this. We talk about our friend Brett Favre. Brett Favre, noted goddamn animal. He was.
Is he like a freak? I really don't know anything about him beyond that he's like a famous athlete.
He had a sexting scandal pop off where he was sending unsolicited dick pics to female reporters.
Okay, that's good. It's always good.
Yeah, just a gross guy.
He seems like he'd be too old to like be on the phone doing all that, but
yeah, right. Well, him being on the phone and being old actually is a bit of his undoing.
I guess he's not that old. He's 52. Okay. Anyway, that's young enough to know how to send pictures of your dick to people. Yeah,
and this was like 10 years ago. He was 42. He was fucking. He was eager to do it. Oh man, I don't think this guy will ever listen to our podcast. The venue we did in Houston, we did this dope ass venue, and the guy like had like their security dude take us out and gave him like we bought all our drinks. It was pretty dope. Nice. Drove us all these bars. But he took us to bars that he goes to, and he happened to be just the most divorced man in Houston.
You only got to spend a night in his shoes.
Yeah, this guy was older than me, and we were at bars where everyone was younger than me, and he was just like, "Dude, the chicks here are fine." And I was like, "Yeah." Oh, it was a rough night in Houston, but anyway, so yeah, Brett Favre. Get back to this guy. He was a quarterback for. Obviously, the Packers for years. Ended his career playing for the Vikings. Stayed in the NFL way too fucking long. At this point, I'm pretty sure his brain is just raspberry Go-Gurt.
Yeah.
I think. He's just like, yeah. But he has since retired back to his home state, Mississippi, and become very involved in politics. By involved in politics, I mean best friends with the governor.
Right. Just another, palm to grease or whatever.
Yeah. So he has been going about wanting to get his daughter into. I'm sorry. So his alma mater was University of Southern Mississippi.
Okay.
And he went there, played all his college ball there. Still like a big in the alumni and like all the clubs surrounding it. And his daughter currently goes there, and she, or at least in 2017 she did, and she was playing for the volleyball team there. So Brett Favre was friends with Phil Bryant, and he approaches Phil Bryant and it asks about, hey, how can I essentially I want to build a volleyball stadium here at MSU or USM, sorry. And they were like, yeah, we can do that. And as he would say later in his defense, they were like, well, you made $140 million in NFL contracts, not including your sponsorships, not including just the money you make from having money. Right. Why didn't you just pay for it out of your own thing? And he said, well, I've always been explained that, wealthy people, what you do is you raise money, you help raise money for causes. And raising money is one thing. What he did was quite different. So he meets in 2017 with Nancy New and tells them that he needs $5 million for this thing. On the first meeting, Phil Bryant and Nancy New approved $4 million for right off the bat. So what they say he'll do it because now here's the one thing, the one rule.
And this is from I'm sorry, this is from Mississippi's Families First or whatever, right?
Yes, money.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because, college, definitely families.
Yeah.
Lots of families are going to be using this volleyball stadium.
Well, that is exactly what they said would happen. They said they put in a submission saying they want to get this volleyball stadium built. And essentially they got word back saying, like, hey, you need to reword this. And so it was said.
Yeah, I cut you off earlier. You were saying one of their only stipulations.
Yeah. One of the only stipulations is that it can't be used outright for construction.
Okay.
You can't use welfare funds to build anything.
Okay.
And so there's a workaround on that. So basically what they did was they wanted to get this thing built. They tell Brett Favre that he needs to resubmit his application and talk about how this volleyball stadium is going to be used to hold like seminars and classes and events for people experiencing poverty.
Oh my God. So they're going to have the financial literacy classes in the volleyball stadium. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Well,
that's so like, man, yeah, I get why this got so popular as like an example because it's so perfect. Like instead of just giving people some money so they can keep their lights on, we're going to build a multi-million-dollar volleyball stadium and invite them and give them a hot dog and teach them how to do better with their money.
And you know what part of it was they were going to have speaking engagements done by the man himself, Brett Favre.
Okay.
I haven't heard Brett Favre speak in about a decade because he's not on SportsCenter anymore. I don't know what he sounds like talking, but again, this dude's brain's a fucking milkshake at this point.
Yeah, I can't imagine he has any like good advice for the poor of Mississippi.
Yeah, like he's gonna be like they literally were like he's gonna give like these talks, and that's what's gonna. But he's not gonna do them for free because we can't pay directly for the building of this fucking volleyball stadium. We're gonna give him the $4 million for speaking engagements.
Okay.
And then,
Very good to bring people out of poverty is to see Brett Favre talk.
Brett, he's got a lot to say about it. He's like, oh, what you got to do is you got to be real good at throwing a football.
Right.
Which is
first you get an NFL contract, then you get your endorsements. Then,
It's like telling like there's an old Onion article where it's a guy talking about his solution for starvation in Africa, and it's that everybody should just go home and make a sandwich. He's like, why don't they do that when they go and make a sandwich and toast the bread so it has a little crunch to it?
Yeah, tummy's rumbling. Go make a sandwich.
Yeah. I see you guys out here in this dirt, noticing far away from your home, which has a kitchen and food. So they do this, and at this point they need like $1.1 million is what they need left. So they start like that. They start talking to the governor and get everybody involved. Well, what happened so this is when everything kind of starts to percolate, come out of the open, and people are seeing this. And now that actually it started back in 2020 when our friend Nancy New and her son Zachary New, who also helped her run the thing, were arrested alongside with the Davis guy that ran the welfare office and about 3 others were
so
arrested.
They did arrest like a state employee for this.
Yes, they did.
Interesting.
They arrested these people, and it was a huge bit of reporting called the Back Channel, and it was done by a Mississippi Today reporter named Anna Wolf. And if you want to learn so much more about this, she is giving tons of interviews. She's all over the news. Read her articles. I can't recommend it. It helped me out with this. It would help me out with this episode. It also just was like intriguing to watch, and she breaks it down and goes so much more in depth into some of the most egregious shit that this lady was doing. And
so if you're not pissed off enough at the end of this episode,
enough,
go get more pissed off.
Yeah. So now when all this comes out, immediately Phil Bryant and fucking our boy Brett Favre are like, man, they're denying it. They're just saying they had no clue what this was. Brett Favre is saying that he had no idea that this was coming from welfare funds. Now, to be clear, Brett Favre has paid back the $1 million he was on the hook for. He was on the hook for that extra $1 million. The $4 million he was never on the hook for. I don't know how they got away with that one, but the $1 million he was on the hook for. Plus, because. All right, get a bit ahead of myself. So when they did that 2020 arrest, an auditor started looking into everything, a state auditor, and he was looking into the egregious spending on the way of the welfare department to the tune of $77 million unaccounted for. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Is the $5 million for the volleyball thing? Getting back to the world of wrestling.
Think about how many people you could just fix all their problems with that money.
Yeah,
in Mississippi, where cost of living is fairly low, it's a pretty affordable place. That's 100,000 people that you just could fix all their problems. It's so wild to me.
And say instead of what they did with that money was they hired on the son of Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. They hired on his son, who was going to do some drug and alcohol counseling programs.
Really?
For the
That's
citizens.
what they went with.
Yeah. And what experience does he have in drug and alcohol counseling? Well, Kath, is because he used TANF Mississippi welfare funds to pay for himself to go to a top-notch luxury rehab facility to kick his own goddamn drug and alcohol problem. So they hired on this like a dude just in the throes of addiction, and then paid for him to go work it out how the stars do out in Malibu.
I gotta say, that is the pro wrestler way.
Yeah.
I love that this guy has a connection to a true carny, because this is some carny shit going on right here.
They even released some funds back to our on behalf of our boy Brett Favre to a pharmaceutical company that Favre was working with called Pravakis, which sounds too much like Pravasic from fucking the Fugitive.
Yeah, it does.
It's because you wanted Pravasic, you know. Pravasic, and this is for an anti-concussion medication, which I guess Brett Favre is too concussed to realize that it's too late.
Right.
Yeah. It's called Pravakis, prevent a concussion, Brett. Meaning that until you steal $77 million more dollars from that fucking time machine, you're not going to be able to go back and stop your brain from being turned into Dunkaroo fudge. I'm gonna have a different snack for Brett Favre's brain every time. So. All right, so let's see. So he says the whole time, he's like, "Yo, I didn't know. I had no clue this is welfare money. I just thought I didn't know this is welfare money. I just thought the government was giving me free money,
right?
Like welfare. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's welfare for you at any rate, whether it was earmarked for anyone else or not. This is.
I didn't think it sounded like welfare. I thought it sounded fair. I just sorry about that, guys. So. At this point, so he was like, "Yo, I never knew this shit. I never knew these were welfare dollars." Well, then they just dropped a bunch of text messages that just refute every lie everyone's told in this the whole time. Mainly the one where Brett Favre is just right there asking Phil Bryant, the governor himself, ask him, "Hey, there's no way for the media to find out where this money's coming from."
In the leaked text, love it. Gotta love it.
Like, hey, man, we ain't going to get in trouble for all this cocaine we're trafficking, are we? Write me back. This is Patrick. That's Sir Royce, Sirois. Hit me back about the cocaine, please. Just the dumbest fucking... Yeah, this is what happens when your brain is fucking Smucker's jam. Yep. This is why you can't figure this shit out. So, all these fucking, So all this shit came to a head. Phil Bryant is now scrambling he's out of office already, but he's scrambling to kind of save his legacy. I don't know what he thinks his legacy is going to be in a state where that leads the goddamn nation in teen pregnancy, infant mortality, and illiteracy.
Yeah.
Which is so yeah, I don't know what legacy he thought he was leaving behind, but now all of this now. And it's just to top it off, that Pravakis drug. Right before he left office, fucking Brett was talking to him and was like, "Yeah, man, if you could really get me some connections for Pravakis, within the Mississippi State government." He's like, "Don't worry about it, dog." 2 days later, he leaves the government. He leaves his government job and just so happens to get a fucking something like a several $1 million stock option from this company. So
great, love it.
Yeah. So that's good. So this is what's going on. Again, as we do with a lot of current event episodes, there's still a lot of moving parts on this. But I will say what this means on the ground for Mississippians right now and just some very, real implications of what this has caused for them. And it's pretty infuriating. Essentially, what this means basically is that, okay, obviously – when we think of welfare going to people, we think it's mainly as checks, but it has to do with a lot of other shit, a lot of state services. And not just state services in the sense of man, I want this from the state. Maybe I can go petition them about it. It's things that the state says you have to do to fulfill your court obligations. Mm-hmm. So let's just say that you were a Mississippi parent and your kids were taken away by CPS and you had to do a parenting class to get them back. Well, guess what? That's probably going to be a lot harder to get to now because they don't have funding for these fucking parenting classes now.
Yeah.
So there are cases on hold where people just need to go there, take a parenting class, anger management class to fulfill their probation, drug counseling class to fulfill their parole. Can't do it or have to travel 3 counties over in places. Yeah. And again, they don't have a new Tahoe. Nobody bought them that Tahoe yet.
Right.
So they're they can't do this. And essentially it boils down to another example of people in power making this life just so much harder than it has to be for everybody. And it's enough to just make you want to throw the fucking computer against the wall. And it's just, I can only hope, my only takeaway from this that I can see the positive would be is that this helps drill home the idea of a class consciousness to people because this shit's real, man. And the people on the other end of it are very aware that it exists and they exploit it and they strengthen their bonds and they take care of themselves and they reinforce this machine they've built. And, the only thing we can do is fucking stand up to it together. And I just hope that more shit comes out that mobilizes more people to do that because so far it's just been unchecked this entire time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said earlier about your friends who are oh, well, people will exploit the system. That's true. The people exploiting the system are the people who are administrating it.
Yeah.
Those are the people with the real power to manipulate things to their favor. It's not the poor people who are just trying to get by. That is, some people cheat a little bit here and there, but not enough to buy a new Tahoe, not enough to give $5 million so that a guy can build a volleyball stadium at his kid's college. Those are the people manipulating the system. That's how can you, if you can see that, if you can understand that truism, that when there is a system like this, there will be unscrupulous people who try to take advantage of it. How can you not see that all of those people are the ones running things? That's how they get into those positions of power, and that's why they get into those positions of power. So, hopefully, this can end on an inspiring note of fuck these people, get them out.
Man.
Take their goddamn money. They don't deserve it. They have their money, is more ill-gotten gains than anybody else's, so fuck them.
Yep, for sure, man. Yeah, that's what it boils down to. This one is fuck them, and and just and also if you want to just find out some more, just like infuriating, but also very educational and very interesting details. Anna Wolf blew this whole thing wide open with her reporting through
WOLF.
WOLF, yes, Anna Wolf.
ANNAWOLF.
Yeah. Go check her out. She was the main sources, and she was on every little interview that I watched. Very informative, very intelligent person, and she did a lot of good work on this. So, that being said, guys, that is the episode for today.
Not worth it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're just tuning in, we always gauge whether each episode was, each scam featured in the episode was worth it and to what extent it was. We have a discussion about that. Not much to discuss here. Not worth it. Don't do it. It's not worth it because, like, even if, like, the people who got in trouble, like, Nancy New and her son are facing the kind of prison sentences that do make you feel good. They're eligible to be hit with up to 99 years in prison.
I can't imagine how unpopular you would be in prison if this is what you went to prison for.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, they might get protected by the Aryan Brotherhood or whatever. But
yeah, that's also possible.
Yeah. Oh, and like, also go read these text messages if you want to see a family just lying to themselves. They're like, at one point, the son goes, "Man, so it looks like we did all that hard work and we're getting thrown under the bus." Like, well, you made all those hot dogs, you piece of shit. Fuck you.
All that hard work.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. Man, we normally do like this episode. It was fun. It was a good time. We normally do a little lighter stuff, but this one just had to be brought up and talked about. But if you like what you heard, you can check out. We drop 2 episodes a month for free. We also do our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/lie, cheat, and steal. And we release 2 episodes there a month. Yeah, we have huge back catalogs of both the free feed and the pay feed. So if you like what you see, get on in there. You can find me online. I'm at PeezyTX. That's PeezyTX on everything. And the podcast Twitter is at LCS Podcast. And come check us out. And if you'd like to check out my tour dates, I have those posted. I'm all over the South this month on the Grits and Gravy tour, considering Frontier Airlines doesn't like throw me out of a window or some shit. I don't know. But Kath, you got anything for us?
Yeah, I have another podcast called What a Time to Be Alive. It's a podcast that comes out weekly about stupid news stories. We have a Patreon for that as well. I'm Kath Barbadoro on social media, and I post my dates there. I live in New York and perform mostly around the New York City area, so check it out. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, guys. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hey, remember, have fun, be safe, be smart, but above all, don't get caught.
Don't get caught. See you next time.